It's 6/27/2024. I'm with World War II veteran John Jeckovich, and we're just going to sit back and watch him look at his aeronautical book for a few minutes, and then when he's done looking at that book, we're going to read, and we're going to be on chapter 4, and that's passes to Owensboro. But John Jeckovich is 99 years old.
Oh, Jesus.
Today is the oldest John Jeckovich will ever been, and the youngest he'll ever be again. So 99 years old. Right now he's the oldest he's ever been, and the youngest he'll ever be again. So here we go. It's a good year. John Jeckovich, 99 years old, sharp as a tack. He can read the newspaper with no glasses. Memory that's unbelievable. That of a 15 to 22-year-old. Just looking at this aeronautical book. He jogged for 80 years.
France.
He jogged for 80 years. And his knees just gave out on him last year, but that's why he's not pushing up Daisy, because he jogged and never smoked, never drank, never caroused. Married for 69 years. He led a good, clean life, and we're just going to sit back and watch him look at the aeronautical book, and then once he's done looking at that book, if he has any comments, he's going to say them. If not, I'll start reading his book at chapter 4, and we're going to be picking up at page 72. But keep in mind, this is not a short book. The book that John Jeckovich wrote, entitled Their Mother's Sons, that's almost 900 pages. 900 pages. So we're just going to sit back right now and watch Mr. Jeckovich if he has any comments about these airplanes he's looking at.
Royal Australian Air Force.
Yeah. I think that book has got every major country, and they're similar to the Blue Angel.
Yeah, they got the Blue Angel in front of the book, yeah.
Yeah. It's extremely interesting. Such talent.
Yeah. Silver Falcon, South American.
Yeah.
Everybody's got an Air Force.
Oh, yeah.
The Snowbirds. Canadian.
Did you spend much time in Canada?
What?
Did you spend much time in Canada as a younger person?
What?
In Canada, did you go to Canada much?
Well, yeah, I took my mother there every Saturday.
Why did you take your mother there every Saturday?
The meat was better and the groceries were better. And then she got her teeth there.
Did you have any troubles coming across the customs?
And they asked her, you got anything to declare? No, I've got nothing to declare. Just my teeth. Come inside, please.
What? Wait, so she just came from the dentist and she received dentures?
In Canada, yeah.
And so who told, what side? Was it the American side or the Canadian side that told her to come in?
Canadian.
And what?
No, at the bridge.
Yeah, but what side was it? The American side?
She was on the American side, but she was going to leave and go back home. And they said, we got anything to declare? She said, yes, I have my teeth. He said, well, accept that here, please.
So what did they charge her taxes on her dentures, on her teeth?
They taxed her, and that was it.
And that was the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we spent a lot of time in Canada.
That's one thing she didn't have to say.
Huh?
That's one thing that she didn't have to say is, I got my teeth.
Yeah.
They would have never asked that. They said, what did they say, come on in?
Please come in, please.
And then they figured out how much the dentures cost, and then did like a 5 or 6% duty. Before you put the book away, just hold it up the front cover so where everyone can see what you're reading.
That's copyright.
That's
okay.
That's 50 years
You
old.
might hold this up?
Hold it
Yeah,
up.
you're good.
Just in front. Okay, that's the book that John Jeckovich glanced through today. Now we're going to read his book. Okay, here we go, chapter 4.
Oh, hey, wait.
Chapter 4, Passes to Owensboro.
Passage to Owensboro.
Before I start reading, Mr. Jeckovich, I'll have to have your dog tag number.
420965.
That's exactly right. Here we go. Here we go. I noticed that there was a gatehouse with a uniformed guard inside. I greeted him, then asked him if he had any information regarding accommodations for servicemen. So you ended up on St. Paul's Episcopal Church. The volunteers, as usual, were very cheerful and helpful. They suggested that there was a shuttle from the bus station in town to the church. Evidently, somehow, I did not receive that information. The sleeping arrangements were in the basement of the church, and as well as a small dining room area for snack breakfast. There were about a dozen cots. There was about a dozen cots in the sleeping area, which to me did not appear to be occupied, as I did not see the usual small gym bags we carried for our personal needs. I selected a cot near the outside wall and placed my gym bag on top of it. As there was no bus available to take me back to the main part of town, one of the volunteers called a cab for me and it arrived shortly. The fare was 75 cents, and I felt justified in giving the driver a dollar bill. I began walking down Main Street wondering what my next move might be. It suddenly struck me that I was hungry and thirsty, and I should be looking for some place to eat. After walking past several places that I thought inappropriate, I chanced upon the very same named department store that I had worked for a while in school.
Kresge's.
Yeah, S.S. Kresge's. That's where your mother worked, the cafeteria.
Yeah.
She makes you some nice lunches there, right?
Yep. She's a cook.
Nice lunches. The cafeteria looked the same as the one back home, was clean and not too crowded, and the food smelled delicious, which made me all the more hungry. I ordered a hot roast beef sandwich, a bowl of vegetable soup, and for dessert a cherry pie a la mode. I thought as I ate that I had come a long way from the days when I could not eat in such a place as this. Even though I did not feel completely at ease, I felt comfortable enough to enjoy my meal and surroundings. I must have sat there for a good hour enjoying my second cup of coffee and observing people eating. I finally decided to leave, paid my bill, flirted with the cute cashier a moment, and then stepped outside to decide my next move. It was dark when I left the cafeteria, and I began once again to walk through the streets looking for something or someone, taking in all the familiar sights and sounds that reminded me of home. I was envious in seeing couples holding hands and talking, not as strangers, but as close and dear friends. Finally, groups would bring back memories of my own family, how infrequently we did anything as a group. I had been brought up, and again brought me home to me. Very vividly, how much I missed it growing up, and I wondered how it would ever affect my own family. If I ever had one. I stopped by in front of the movie theater marquee, which stated in big, high letters that John Wayne was playing here in a movie entitled The Battle of Midway. I decided to go inside and get a glimpse of my future, the rest for a while, and I still could not get used to seeing civilians at a movie theater, and the novelty preoccupied me more than the movie.
Yeah, you were in uniform too, huh?
Yeah, that's amazing. I was not impressed with the movie, but found short subjects and the news to my liking. After I left the movie, the hour was getting late. I began to look for a place to get a snack, then head back to the church for a good night's sleep. I did not want a chance of walking back to the church, as I was not too familiar with my direction in the dark. I hailed a cab, and the driver got me there in relatively short time with the usual $1 fare. There were several occupied cots, and I could see people sound asleep in them. I quickly retrieved my toilet articles and went into a small shower area adjacent to the sleeping quarters. After washing up and brushing my teeth, I quickly removed my outer clothing and slipped into my cot. I thought about the day's event and decided that the trip to Evansville with Smith was more eventful, especially in meeting Elaine and enjoying her company. I wondered what she was doing this precise moment. With that thought in mind, I fell into a deep, sound sleep. The next morning, the movement of a few people in the area awoke me, and I waited my turn for the shower area. I thought about what I would do for the remainder of my time in town. After showering and shaving, I went into the dining area for a glass of orange juice, coffee, and a breakfast roll. The volunteer instructed me to be sure to take my belongings with me when I left, as the church hall would be closed at noon. After thinking about this last bit of information, I decided it would be best to leave my gym bag in one of the lockers I had seen at the bus station. Boy, you get around, you go to lockers and gym bags, and they push you around all over the place. You're like, I'll go to find a bus station, I'll rent a locker.
Yeah.
I decided it would be the best to leave my gym bag in one of the lockers at the bus station. I thanked the volunteers for everything and walked out the front entrance of the church to wait on the cab to take me to the bus depot. Having checked my bag in one of the lockers, I stood out in front of the station, deciding what to do next. I walked back to the distillery and asked the guard if they had any guided tours today. He informed me that it would be one at 1300 hours, several hours from now. With much time to kill, and since I did not have a regular breakfast, I went back to the cafeteria I had eaten the previous night. It was fairly crowded, and I found a seat at the counter, having ordered one of the breakfast specials. I felt uncomfortable eating at the counter. As I became more uneasy, I ate quickly at my breakfast and left the store. I still had time before the first tour of the distillery. I recalled a small park I had seen on 4th Street behind City Hall. It was a short walk from the store cafeteria to this little park, which I found easily enough. I was a small, isolated park surrounded by commercial and residential buildings on all sides. There was an assortment of varied picnic tables and benches, which I assumed were for the exclusive use of office workers from the adjoining nearby apartments. There were mostly young couples with 1 or 2 children playing catchball, flying kites, and the usual pastimes young children engage in with their parents. There were no soldiers about, and so was the case for the entire city. I felt strange and isolated. I vowed that on my next pass I would not come alone. but have a recruit someone to accompany me. I found an empty bench and preoccupied myself with watching the children at play and discerning the actions and sounds of their young parents. Everyone was completely oblivious to my presence. It was as if I did not exist for the moment, but was viewing the scene unfolding before my eyes from a distant observation booth. I felt resentful of the young couples as they're part of something, a future with their young families for many years to come. I had no future, but for the immediate present was no staunch advocate by my side urging me on. Watching their interaction with one another, I felt piqued by the fact that I would never offered the opportunity to partake of life as they so obviously enjoyed. My mindset before the Army was focused on the immediate families, my parents' family, and not anything remotely connected with self. My brothers were correct in their attitude. Their self-centeredness gave them directions and well-being. For me, there was no direction but conciliatory reaction and response to the immediate family's trials and tribulations. The touch of a softball rolling against my foot brought me back to reality, and the sight of a young boy searching mine for the return of his ball only reinforced what I sensed all along in my thoughts after that afternoon. I could not return to my youth, but had to move forward with what I had acquired, for better or for worse. It was almost 1,300 hours, and I completely forgot about the tour at the distillery. I reached the street and briskly walked past the city hall and the post office and down 4th Street to Old Litchfield Road. Glenmore Distillery was just beyond. I had gotten there just in time. The tour was starting with only a dozen or so people, mostly made up of young families. Once again, there was no servicemen at all. Minutes? The tour guide was attractive and a knowledgeable young woman.
12.
And I assumed went to the local college here in town. I observed and discerned a large brewery, vats, and thousands of miles of stainless steel pipes in every direction conceivable to an untimely end up as bottles on a large conveyor belt. I saw the bottles march like many disciplined and seasoned soldiers to be finally boxed and shipped to various locations. I thought how familiar to ours was their final destiny. So that was a pretty big distillery, huh?
Yeah,
And you watch the bottles get filled, labeled, and then go in the boxes.
yeah.
That was interesting. That was very interesting. Since it was Sunday, all the stores, with the exception of the restaurants and eateries, were closed. All the department store cafeteria I frequented was also closed. I was compelled to get something to eat at the small eatery behind the park where I had been earlier. The snack was not that great, and the atmosphere left much to be desired. I did pick up one bit of information while there. It was a hangout for students at the local college several miles south of here.
What was it?
I found out later it was a hangout for the students at the local college several miles south of here. Following the directions given to me by the cook at the eatery, I went past City Hall, turned right on Frederica Street extension, which led me to Frederica Street, and then finally Kentucky Avenue and Kentucky Wesleyan College. The college looked peaceful and inviting. It reminded me somewhat of the school that Steve was attending, but on a much smaller scale. There were students milling about, going to various buildings and dormitories. I stopped one to ask them where the bookstore and library were located. Luckily, they were in a close proximity to each other. I spent some time reading in the library, browsing about books, and reading some of the local newspapers, of which there are only two. The students in the library were concerned about my presence in the midst, and I gradually relaxed and began to enjoy myself somewhat. The bookstore was several buildings down, was a rather small but well stocked with usual textbooks, magazines, and periodicals. As I walked through the several aisles, a clerk approached me and asked if she could be of assistance. I politely stated I was just looking about and thanked her for her offer to help. I felt uncomfortable after her offer to help, and after several minutes, I departed the bookstore and began walking about campus. It was a beautiful campus with many shade trees and winding paths leading into little study areas and conversation pits. I sat in one of the study nooks and thought how great it would be to return to this very school after my tour of duty was up. I immediately realized that would never come to fruition, dismissed the thought, and started to walk again. Not thinking where I was walking, but letting my mind wander about, for many thoughts I had brought us to the realization that I had been following a bridle path and was completely out of the college area. As I turned to retrace my steps, I discovered the path took many twists and turns. I looked at my watch nervously, and it happened to be past 1800 hours and time to get back to the bus station. It was as if I was in a giant maze, getting deeper and deeper in the very center of its depth. I forged recklessly ahead with no definite direction, and in a mind aimlessly looking for a familiar landmark or signpost. Finally, I saw some lights that appeared to be street lights. With sight of relief, I thought was back in the familiar territory, and there would be the bus station. So I approached the lights, and there was a street, but it was not 4th or 5th. It was unfamiliar road, namely Tamarack Road. I was lost. Tamarack Road. I was lost. As I began walking down the street, it became apparent that I was in a residential area and there were several single-family homes all about. I became apprehensive. There were no stores or restaurants anywhere in sight from which I could see or call a cab to get me out of the situation. Walking towards the middle of the block, I noticed there was two people talking in front of one house on the other side of the street. When I crossed the street, I immediately noticed me and stopped talking. They were two young women in their early 20s. I excused myself for intruding on their privacy and asked them, how do I get back to the bus station in town? One of them instantly let out a short feminine giggle, and the other smiled and shifted her weight from one foot to the other. This took me aback slightly, and I turned sharply and began to walk away from them. One of them immediately retorted they would gladly help me find my way back to the bus station and give me directions. As she began to give me some instructions relative to the direction back, I did not hear a word she said. I began to notice her demeanor and her appearance. She was attractive and appeared poised and self-assured. Needless to say, I did not hear much of her comments on the directions back to town. She must have noticed the confusion I displayed as she began to repeat herself regarding the directions. What I could gather from her conversation was that it was a distance to the station and it was hardly feasible to attempt to walk there.
4 minutes.
Besides, it was dark already. I suggested a cab and she remarked it was not too reliable, as the cabs ran infrequently on Sunday. Her friend blurted out that they would drive me to the station in Annie's mother's car. Annie, the one giving directions, took a guess at her friend's comment but said nothing. She returned momentarily, and with a pleased smile she said her mother had consented her using the car. It was both uncomfortable and relieved that my immediate problem had been resolved, and uncomfortable that I was imposing on several strangers. As we drove to the station, we talked a little about insignificant trivia. Although I did not feel tense or fluttered, I was dismayed at riding with two young women I did not even know. I feel the feeling slowly abated, and the more I talked to Annie and Mar. After about 15 minutes of driving, we reached the station. I had not realized how far I wandered away. I have not realized how far I wandered away from it. I felt the more obligated in subjecting them to the extended driving and the time in arriving here. I suggested that we stop at a small coffee shop in the bus station, and I would treat. They both agreed, and after I picked up my gym bag from one of the bus station lockers, I followed them into the coffee shop. It was fairly early yet, and I've always catch the last bus for camp. Minutes? With the thought in my mind.
1 minute and 51 seconds.
Okay. You gonna get that thing ready?
Yeah, that's right.
The thought in mind. It was fairly early yet, and I could always catch the last bus for camp.
You want to look? I got the mail.
Just give a postcard. Just a postcard.
Okay.
Mail call. What's that? Just take it.
It's New Yorker.
Huh?
Newspapers.
This can't hurt him. So here's your second piece when he's ready. How about the time?
1 minute. What's it say, John?
Huh?
What's it say?
Thank you for doing our various, what the hell, I can't read his writing.
Hold up the card so I can see what the outside looks like. The other side. The front of it. Let me see what it's about. Is it a mountain or something?
Let me see. Dear Mr. Jeckovich.
Fraser Farm, Joseph.
Do you know that guy?
Thank you for doing the wars. It is
Video, yeah.
very educational. My family has enjoyed watching your views.
Video.
Best regards, Henry Rhymes.
Hold it up. Let me see the front of it for the video. The other way. It's crooked.
Huh?
It's crooked.
Turn it up this.
Turn it upside down. Yeah. Now hold it.
Nice.
Do you know that guy?
No, I don't know this guy, Dave.